Eric Nauman, professor of medical engineering at Purdue University, joins the Be Different podcast to talk about his latest request that was building a brace for 7'2" center Isaac Haas. Be Different podcast is back at our downtown studio, and we have a special caller calling in for an unplugged interview. It's Eric Nauman, professor of medical engineering at Purdue. Eric, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you guys letting me come on.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on. I know for us it's a little bit early at times. I know you got a lot going on. Hopefully we won't keep you too long so you can go about your day here.
Sure.
So how long have you been at Purdue as a professor? And taking a look at your bio, I mean, it looks like you do everything. And Purdue, renowned as one of the top engineering schools in the country, you are obviously a big piece of that. Can you just speak on, how long you've been there and how Purdue has become, such a well-respected school in that space?
Yeah, I've been here. I started out at Tulane, and I came here in 2004, so I've been here about 14 years, kind of in between the mechanical engineering school and biomedical engineering, do a little basic medical sciences, and it's kind of an amazing place because basically when I got here, it's such a big school. It's so STEM heavy. Pretty much any idea you have, there's somebody to help you knock that idea around and see what you can do with it. And so that's been a wonderful experience here.
Yeah, I'd imagine you get to be around some pretty incredible people and a pretty unique situation to be able to spitball ideas with such creative minds. You did receive your PhD from the University of California, so how did you end up back in the Midwest?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, so I'm not sure if I have a great answer, but essentially, when I graduated, I wanted to start teaching and doing a little bit of research, and Tulane had an opening. We went down to New Orleans, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. But there were some challenges there, and we actually, I'll be quite honest, I grew up in the Midwest. I was terrified of hurricanes. The whole idea of the first hurricane, my neighbors are out kind of watching it, just hanging out, and they would have hurricane parties, and I would see the water coming up our steps, and I thought, this is insane. I don't understand this at all. And so that kind of a thing kind of got me to the point where I'm like, okay, I just have to see if there's anything out there. And at that time, Purdue had some openings, and I thought, well, what are the chances I could get in there? And so I sent in a resume just to see what would happen, and they said, yeah, we actually want to start pushing our biomedical, our tissue regeneration, and our in my area, kind of injury prevention, and so we lucked out, and then actually 2004 we left. 2005 was when Katrina hit, and so we were fortunate from that perspective, but yeah, that's the short version, I guess.
Awesome. So yeah, your interests are primarily human injury, cell and tissue mechanics, adult stem tissue based regeneration. So are you testing new ideas all the time, or like when you have a new idea, how are you bringing it to others within the program?
Yeah, we actually have kind of a wacky array of projects going on, right? So for the last 10 years or so, myself, Tom Twalavich, and Larry Leverance have been working on head injuries and trying to understand what happens when you hit your head, say playing football or playing soccer. And it's taken us about 10 years, but we've started to find that, where the damage occurs, that kind of thing. And so that got us into making new types of helmets and padding materials. And we got, I think, 3 patents on it so far.
Wow.
And when we have started a small company trying to do cartilage and ligament repair, because we had another crazy idea, and I had this wonderful student Daryl Dickerson, who just took off with it and showed in an animal model that we could repair tendons about 3 times faster than you could normally. And so we thought, oh, well, this is great stuff. So it's been really wonderful. Like any of these kind of ideas where we want to protect people. We actually have a whole class dedicated to making assistive technologies where the students just work with kids and just people in need, and we try to build stuff for them specifically. So rich environment.
Yeah, well, and you speak on the helmets, and obviously football is an important game in the U.S. especially, and there's a lot of people saying that football is not a game that can be played safely, and if you're a younger player interested in the sport, you shouldn't play anymore, and parents and are tending to hold their kids back a little bit. I mean, do you feel like with this research there is a way, to move football forward in a positive direction, where players, parents, coaches, even people watching the game can feel better about, somebody on the field, getting a hit, wide receiver taking a route to the middle that's getting, a head-to-head hit, because you can't completely take those out of the game. I mean, do you feel like, some of the research that, you and your group are on could be very beneficial to the game of football itself?
That's a very good question. And when we first started, I thought there's no way this is going to go forward. This is, the damage we're seeing is just too ubiquitous and too severe. But as we've done the work, what we found is that it's becoming pretty clear, both from the women's soccer and from football, that 50 Gs is about where you start to build up damage. And so now we have a design goal, and based on what we've done in the lab, I'm pretty sure we could take those 150 G hits and get them down to right around 50 Gs. So I actually am very confident that with the right technology, we can actually play football. It's probably never going to be as safe as, say, baseball or certainly not cross country, but
yeah, that'd be tough.
Yeah, you could get it to the point where parents really don't worry about choosing between baseball and football or
Awesome.
Any of those kind of sports. So I do think that there is a reason to be hopeful for that.
Awesome. Very cool. And well, you had a very interesting request come your way, over the last couple of weeks. But Purdue basketball obviously had a fantastic year. They were a number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. One of their best players, Isaac Haas, 7'2", a senior, he broke his right elbow in the first round of a game versus the 15 seed Cal State Fullerton. Isaac, a very important piece, obviously the biggest cog to the Purdue team. And then for game 2, when they were playing Butler just 2 days later, it didn't seem like it was a situation where Coach Painter was going to allow him to play, but Purdue and the staff did have Haas put on a brace that the referees deemed that it would not be acceptable, that it was unfit because it had a non-pliable material. So after that game, which was on a Saturday, it was the second round of the NCAA tournament, then you were asked to actually produce a brace, you and your team, through a relationship that you have through sports medicine. So I guess I'm curious, how did you, become aware, obviously, of Isaac's injury? I'm sure you may have been watching the game, and then who contacted you to actually build something?
Yeah, that's a good story, I think, as well. Basically, after I heard the initial report that he had broken his elbow, I thought, okay, well, that's probably it. And I wasn't, I was at a thing during the Butler game, and so I hadn't heard that he had tried to get on the court there. And so it was actually Sunday night that we got an email asking if there was anybody that could produce an elbow brace for a giant. And I thought, it took me a second. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And so we replied, because we've done a lot of these assistive technologies, and we've done a lot of this kind of stuff. We've worked with people with drop foot and all this kind of stuff. So I was like, yeah, I think we can handle it. That's not too big a deal. And then they said, yeah, actually, Monday morning, we met with the athletic trainers, and they said, yeah, we actually need it by tomorrow night because we may have to leave really early Wednesday morning. We thought, okay, well, this is a much more interesting problem. And so, but what was great is, Sunday night I put my students on alert that we might be dedicating the next week to something, and they all jumped on board. They were all really excited,
Cool.
and so we started after we met the athletic trainers, 8 a.m. Monday morning. We started brainstorming, and I actually went to teach class, and the students kept brainstorming, and we filled up that whiteboard, and then we came back, and by I think about 2 or 3 o'clock, we had the basic design. You had to prevent the elbow from locking out. You had to provide a lot more cushioning because that's where the elbow pads really weren't stepping up, and then you also had to provide some stability. And so my students are doing composites, they're doing rapid prototyping, and the one student, is doing leather work. And
That's amazing.
And I'm like, this is incredible. Where did you learn this? He's like, oh, I just do this for fun. And actually the social media helped a lot too, because he and two other students went to do that. One was making the padding, another one was out, or another 2 or 3 actually were out doing the composites, and they're all just kind of communicating constantly about what's going on and how things are going to fit, and we've never done anything under that kind of deadline before. It was actually just fun to be a part of, right? Because at that point, like once they took off, I helped a little bit with the 3D printing, and I was just trying to keep track of what was going on. But these students just, I can't explain. I mean, they had 3 different options for the padding material. They made them, tested them, put them into the brace, the carbon fiber. We had, I think, 2 different versions of it, and we tried those all out. Like those students did so much testing. I mean, it should have taken a month, but they just cranked through it, and unbelievable.
That's amazing. And then, and plus, not to mention the NCAA rules that you guys had to deal with as well. I mean, I was taking a look at the rule book, and there is definitely a little bit a gray area when it comes to like the pliability of the material. Where you can have the material, upper body, lower body, what part is acceptable to actually have that piece of equipment. So the fact that your group had a timeline, to try and get this done in almost 24 hours, and not to mention that you're doing it on a guy who's 7 feet 2 inches tall. I mean, an absolute giant. So you guys are trying to prototype it on students that are normal individuals and normal size, and then you're trying to fit, NCAA, regulations. And you guys are fighting a lot of different, odds to get that done.
Yeah, you're absolutely right in that. And there is some gray area. There's some room for interpretation in the rules, and it's all geared towards trying to make sure that the game is safe for everybody. But we didn't know exactly how it would be interpreted, so we were really analyzing that design on a lot of different levels. And I think the best part is the one where we took our biggest, strongest student in the lab, and then we put a huge sweatshirt on him to kind of stimulate Isaac's muscles, and that elbow brace came right up to his armpit, and then we put it on Isaac, and it's mid bicep, and we're like, wow, this is so. Luckily, he was great. He let us come in and do the fittings and stuff, and he'd step out of rehab and out of class, or not. We'd take him out of class, but we'd wait till after his class, and he'd come over and would let us try it on and make sure we had the measurements right, because there's no 7'2" mannequins or anything like that that we were going to get hold of. Yeah,
you have to go to the big and tall stores. It'd be kind of tough to find.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it definitely speaks to. I mean, were some of the students that were working on it or yourself? Did you guys previously have relationships with the basketball team? From afar, you watch this team. It seems like a really good group of young men. Coach Painter, very well respected. So. And sports medicine, who contacted you guys, sports medicine, obviously a big piece. You guys were a piece of this puzzle. I know that Isaac wasn't able to play, but ultimately the brace that your team created in 24 hours was cleared, by the NCAA. Was there a prior relationship on your end to the team?
The big relationship with us was with sports medicine. So so we've worked very closely with them for a long time, especially on the head injury front. But also just knocking ideas around and seeing what we could build and what we could, making little devices here and there. There was one time where we didn't have enough time to get into it with them, but they wanted to recondition their whole field, and so they didn't have enough time to do it, but we were going to make a whole array of robots that were going to run over their field turf and just recondition it, and that would have been a lot of fun. But we've been interacting with sports medicine for about 10 years. Not had much work with the basketball team, and so this was really the first time working with the basketball team, and they were a great group. Like I think that's part of what inspired my students, was just meeting them and interacting with them, and everybody's just helpful and relaxed and willing to talk things out, try new stuff. They're very open-minded and willing to knock ideas around. So that was actually just a wonderful experience.
Awesome. Well, Eric, we really appreciate your time coming on the Be Different podcast, sharing your story as well as some of your recent success stories, and really happy that you were able to come on and get with us. I know it's a little bit early in the morning, but you were great, and we wish you, as well as the rest of your group, nothing but success here moving forward.
I appreciate it. Thanks, you guys.
Yep. Thanks, Eric. Have a good one.
Take care.